This is the Sega Genesis Mini 2, the latest mini console that released in North America on October 27th, 2022. We reviewed the original Sega Genesis Mini all the way back in 2019, and I really enjoyed the system. It had a great selection of games, the presentation and emulation was developed by M2 and it was top quality. The system did get some criticism for audio and input lag, but I felt like the Genesis Mini 1 was easily one of the better mini consoles.
So I gotta be honest with you guys, I wasn't entirely sure why Sega would release an updated mini console in 2022 when most of the video game industry has kind of moved on from making mini systems. But once I started messing around with this system, I realized that this is a labor of love that was specifically curated for the fans of the Sega Genesis and mini consoles. And with that, I think that this particular Sega Genesis Mini 2 is the best, hands down, mini console that you can buy. Let's go ahead and take a closer look.
The Sega Genesis Mini 2 is a brand new update from the original model and contains 60 games in this collection, and there are some real treats here for the fans. For the first time, there are 12 Sega CD titles included, such as Final Fight CD, Robo Alesti, Shining Force CD, Night Trap, and many more. As well as this, as a treat for the fans, M2 themselves have ported 7 games over exclusively for the Genesis Mini 2, including Fantasy Zone, Space Harrier 2, and Puyo Puyo Sun. That's pretty good value for money for $99 US. Out of the box, you'll receive an HDMI adapter, USB power adapter and cable, a 6-button Genesis control pad, and the star of the show, of course, the Mini 2 console. This is almost an exact replica of an original Genesis 2 right down to the power and reset switches. Even the side expansion panel is removable and the cartridge port is accessible. They serve no other purpose, of course, but for the fans of the hardware, you'll really get a kick out of this. One thing that I did notice is just how small this system is. Now, it's been a while since I played around with mini consoles, but I can't quite remember them being this small. The base is about the size of a CD jewel case. There's 2 USB controller ports on the front, but you'll only receive one controller, which is a bit of a bummer. There is a power and reset switch on the front, but there is no LED light in the middle, which is not the same as the original, and some fans may be a little disappointed. On the back is the HDMI output for native 720p video and a USB power connector, and that's about it. Connecting up the unit, we can get a look at the updated UI for the Mini 2. It's an iteration over the original Genesis Mini UI and contains, once again, menu music by the legendary Yuzo Koshiro. From here, we can scroll through the games list, and right off the bat you'll see there's a pretty decent selection of games in this list. On the original Genesis Mini 1, one neat trick was that you could change the region to say Japanese, and the interface would change and include region-specific cover art and ROMs depending on the region selected, and that's exactly the same thing here. In some instances, Japanese variants of games are simply better, such as Bare Knuckle 3, otherwise known as Streets of Rage 3 here in the US. For me, it's the definitive way to play this game, and it's a nice touch for the fans. Over the years, Sega Genesis and Mega Drive collecting has gotten so expensive that in many cases it's just easier to emulate. But the great news here is there are some quality games here that are also some of the most expensive to buy. Rainbow Islands, A Soldier, Robo Aleste, Shining Force CD, and many others cost ridiculous amounts of money to buy these days, so I think that $99 price tag is well worth it. Sega CD titles here are pretty good. You get Final Fight CD, Shining Force CD, Robo Alesti, and even the Japanese exclusive Night Striker by Taito. Other games include FMV titles such as Night Trap and Sewer Shark, but both of these games are passing curiosities at best, and this is one part of the lineup where I'm a little disappointed. You see, over in Japan, the Mega Drive Mini 2 comes with both Luna and Luna Eternal Blue. Both games unfortunately are notable omissions in the North American Genesis Mini 2. The Sega CD emulation, however, is of a high quality. I didn't notice anything in terms of graphical issues or audio issues. All the games run and play just the way that I remember them. Now, having said that, when it comes to Sega Genesis emulation, one of the key things to get right is sound. This is almost an impossible task for an emulation developer because there are so many variations of Genesis motherboards, and depending on the model that you have, there will be subtle differences in audio. But M2 absolutely understands this, and the Genesis Mini 2 offers two options for sound: original Model 1 and updated Model 2 audio. And I gotta say, these are faithful recreations of the Yamaha YM2612 chip in its various forms. Take a listen for yourself. But that's not all that M2 has included. They've brought both new games and enhanced some existing games in some cool new ways. Space Harrier 2 was a launch title for the Sega Genesis back in the day, but it was always quite choppy and jarring, especially when you consider the Superscaler original or even the 32X version. The Genesis simply doesn't have the hardware capable of Superscaler style games. Or does it? Because Sega and M2 asked the question, what if the Genesis or Mega Drive could handle sprite scaling? Wonder no longer. This 3D classic gets a new revamp thanks to modern technology, creating a game experience more akin to the arcade version. This is a pretty bold statement, but I gotta be honest, they actually pulled it off. To my eyes, this indeed looks like it's scaling all sprite data and not resorting to predefined sizes. This is especially notable in level 1 when you're fighting the boss. The Genesis is flickering as it's trying to scale all the monster data and keep up. This is seriously impressive stuff here. M2 have modified Space Harrier in such an awesome way. Now I will say the sense of speed is perhaps a touch too slow, but this in my opinion is an excellent enhancement to the game. The bonus titles are a real treat for fans as well. Fantasy Zone is a direct arcade port and it's quite excellent. Other bonus games will be well received by Sega fans and preservationists. It's the icing on the cake of an already impressive package. Then there's the 60 games, and we can't even begin to cover them all. But what I can say here is that there are some real heavy hitters. Splatterhouse 2, Rolling Thunder 2, Revenge's Shinobi Virtual Racing, which runs flawlessly I might add. Thunder Force 4 is a classic. Phantasy Star 2 has also been updated to include an easy mode and improved movement speed. Truxton is here as well, and its music plays at the exact same speed as the original arcade. M2 has gone above and beyond. Rounding out the Genesis 2 Mini, you get selectable wallpapers, a CRT filter, and 4 save states per game, and you've got one hell of a product for $99. Could it be better? Well, absolutely, and I do wish we received Luna in North America, and the omission of the second controller is a bit of a letdown. Finally, I do wish that these mini consoles would move on from 720p visuals. It's 2022, and we should be at least getting 1080p by now. As it stands, it's still a very clean picture on most displays, but something like the Mr. or Mega SG by Analog with 1080p visuals do look a lot better. Now, for those people that are interested in opening up the unit to take a closer look, I'm sure eventually that this system will be hacked or jailbroken. It's probably just a matter of time. But to open it up, you just need a Phillips head screwdriver, unscrew the 4 screws on either end of the case, and then simply turn the system back around and then pull the top case off. There are no ribbon cables or anything like that, so it's a pretty easy teardown. And then what you want to do is take a Phillips head screwdriver again and unscrew the 4 screws that are holding down this heatsink. Now, when I took off the heatsink, one thing that I noticed was there was basically a shroud that contains or conceals the main processor that's found on the Genesis 2 Mini motherboard, and unfortunately I didn't have the appropriate tools to take off the particular heatsink itself. So at this time I'm still not really quite sure what type of chip is being used here, but if I was to guess, it's probably something that's similar to the Genesis Model 1 chip, but I'm sure we'll find out more about the type of chip that's being used in the coming days. Someone like Spawnwave will probably do a full teardown, but it will be interesting to see if this system does get hacked. I'm sure it will eventually, and from here maybe we can recover and restore some of the missing games that were found on the Japanese and UK versions, including Luna and Popville Mail, but we'll just have to wait and see until the time comes.
I think what I really love about the Sega Genesis Mini 2 and what connected with me early was that this is just not another cash grab. This is a labor of love that has been developed here. These 60 games that you get is, without doubt, the largest that you would get in a mini collection for starters. Not only this, the games that are here are not just the regular kind of throwaway games that we've come to expect with a Sega Genesis collection. In fact, most of those were already offered up in the Sega Genesis Mini 1. This time around, the Sega Genesis Mini 2 has 60 games. 12 of these are Sega CD games, which is awesome in of itself, but the 60 games that you get here are of a high quality. So yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, I definitely recommend this. Check out the Sega Genesis Mini 2 if you're a fan of mini consoles and a Genesis fan. This is the best mini console that you can buy to date. Well guys, we are going to leave it here for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.